video, we are going to learn the basics about data models. So, here to start with, um, if you can write precise business roles from a description of operations, database design is not that difficult. Therefore, once data modeling and data models, the importance of data models and data model basic building blocks. It has been examined in detail in your book in the section of 2 to 4. The business roles should receive the business roles should receive a lot of class time and attention. So we are going to emphasize on business roles because to start with the database designing, you need to first gather the business rules or the requirements. The business rules are precisely written and unambiguous statements that are derived from a detailed description of an organization's operations. When written properly, business rules define one or more of the following modeling components. What are those modeling components? These are entities, relationships, attributes, connectivities, cardinalities, and constraints. So before designing database models, we should be uh, particularly versed with all these components that I just told you now. Okay, so these are the learning objectives. We are starting with data modeling and data models. So a data model is what? It's a relatively simple representation, usually graphical, of a more complex real-world object event. The data model's main function is to help us understand the complexities of the real-world environment. The database designer uses data models to facilitate the interaction among designers, application programmers, and the end users. In short, a good data model is a communications device that helps eliminate or at least substantially reduce the discrepancies between the database design's components and the real world data environment. So these are the importance that I just told you now. Next, we are moving over to the basic building blocks that I just told you in the first slide. Our entity, attribute, relationship, and constraint, and connectivity. So entity is something, it's a person, anything which has a physical existence in this real world. An attribute is nothing but the feature or the characteristics of that entity which has a physical existence. And while building a database models or database tables, you need to show some sort of relationship in between those entities or in the tables, in between the tables. And those relationships can take many forms, such as one to many, one to one. We will go into the details of each one of them later in the other chapters. So constraint is nothing but a restriction or a limitation placed on a data. So let's say, suppose say in a table or in a database, you will just include the names of employee of employees, or let's say customers. Okay, so the names, you can say that the data will take only the names that start with the alphabet A and ends with J. Okay, so after J, besides J, A to J, it won't include any of the names starting with that alphabet past J. So this is a kind of a constant. Or let's say, what example can I give you? Let's say roll number of a student. So let's say the roll number in between 10 to 20 or 100 to 200 can be only included in the database. Other than that is not allowed in the table or the database. It is some kind of constraint and to be imposed in the database, and it always ensures the data integrity. If you are imposing a constraint, it must provide some sort of integrity to the database. Next, let's see what are business roles. A business role is a brief, precise, unambiguous description of a policy, procedure, or principle within a specific organization's environment. The business roles are derived from a description of operations. As the name implies, a description of operations is a detailed narrative that describes the operational environment of an organization. So I can give you some example. There can be some sort of rules, business rules, such as a customer in an organization may generate many invoices. Okay, an invoice can be generated by only one and only one customer. Employee should be trained in more than one skill. So if you are imposing that type of business rule or constraint on the database, you have to stick to that. This is about business rule. Okay, sources of some of the business rules. Now, moving over to the translating business rules into data model components. So, what are these? As a general rule, while you are writing the business rule, you need to follow some sort of guidelines. So, as a general rule, a noun is a business rule will translate into an entity in the model, and a verb, it can be active or passive, associating the nouns will translate into a relationship among the entities. Okay. So for example, the business rule, let's say you write a customer may generate many invoices, right? So a customer generate many invoices that I showed you here, this one, for this business rule. So what should we understand from this? That it contains two nouns, that is customer and invoice, and a verb generate that associates them. So this is how you write the business rule. Okay. So in the next, I'm going to make another video starting with the evolution of data models. That's all in this video.